everyone. Welcome to another episode of Flashback 64, Flashback 32 edition. I'm Gooey, joined as always by McKenna. How's it going?
Good.
And today we're once again reaching across the aisle and taking a look at another PS1 game from the time of our show. And we're talking about, I think, the best-selling PS1 game. So this is a big one. You know, before we've covered, I think, games that are important to a lot of people, but I wanted to really talk about one that really gave the N64 a run for its money. So we're talking about Gran Turismo today, which I'm really excited about. And we've got perfect guests joining us today to help us discuss this game. Both returning guests. Of course, we've got our Sound Stone brother, PS1 brother, Darren Hupke of Pixels and Polygons. Darren, welcome back to the show.
Hello.
Great to have you.
I had a few words, famously.
Always good to have you. Always good to have you, of course. Thank you for once again hopping on to talk about this game.
Every time I will talk about every PlayStation game for every episode, if need be. So I am available. Also returning to the show, we've got our new but good pal, Adam Ismail. Adam, welcome back to the show.
Hey, thanks for having me. I will never pass up an opportunity to talk about this game, this series, but like especially this game. It was a big deal for me growing up.
Yeah, I wanted to make a big deal for this one. We actually have, you guys haven't heard it, but we've got some special music that I had made by our mutual group friend Andrew Elmore. He's got some PS1 themed music that we used to intro this episode. I can't wait for you guys to hear it. It's pretty banging. So
that sounds rad.
Special occasion. We've got great guests returning. I want to jump into it. I don't have a real flashback segment, but I do kind of want to point out before we talk about the game that in North America, Gran Turismo dropped May 12th, 1998. So if we're tracking that on the Flashback 64 chronology, it's right around the time when we were talking about Yoshi's Story and Snowboard Kids. I'm not going to go over all that same stuff, but I wanted to more talk about the context of racing games at the time, like leading up to this, because it's like a few years now into the PS1 library. Darren, I'll start with you first. Like, what's I don't know if we've gone into much like at this time, what were you playing in terms of like racing games, or like, you know, what was important at that time beyond Gran Turismo?
I mean, it was more like arcade style, like racing games, you know, or like on console, like Ridge Racer, or the like Need for Speed games. Some of the earlier Need for Speed games, like Road and Track Present the Need for Speed. The very first one was a very dull and boring racing game. I remember playing and people really being excited about it. And my uncle had it for his PlayStation, and I was like, yeah, this is not an exciting video game that I want to be playing, but yeah, some of the later Need for Speeds that came after that or so, I don't know that I was maybe a big racing game fan for PlayStation racing at that point yet. I mean, I remember on like Virtua Racing or in the arcades, like Daytona USA or things like that. It was always fun to play racing games, but never necessarily like to the extent of being obsessed with them at home for me in that time.
Sure. Yeah, Adam, how about you? Like, I know we've talked a little bit about, you've sent me a list of like some interesting racing games on N64 and everything, but do you have much history with the PlayStation 1 and like racing games on the PlayStation 1?
Oh my God. So much history. I remember the earliest PlayStation 1 racing game I remember playing is probably Ridge Racer or Ridge Racer Revolution. I mean, Ridge Racer was a launch title. It was there on day one. Mm-hmm. Either that or Revolution. And my earliest gaming memories are of playing those games on the PS1, probably your, Sega Rally or Daytona on the Saturn. And at this point, May 98, I am 5 years old.
Nice.
And I don't know. I mean, thankfully, like my older brothers let me just like, mess around with their systems and stuff, even though I was like a baby. But the bringing up Yoshi's Story is actually a little story that I wanted to tell, because I remember when we got this game, it must have been a couple weeks or maybe a month or something after launch, because I remember we had Yoshi's Story on the N64 and I liked it a lot. And then one day we didn't have Yoshi's Story anymore and we had Gran Turismo. And this, I remember, really bothered me. I remember my friends came over and we were going to play Yoshi's Story or something and it wasn't there. And so we had this really difficult car game that nobody knew how to play. And even though like I loved cars from that young age, I couldn't like play Gran Turismo effectively. I just spun out over and over again. So yeah, I was pretty sad to lose Yoshi's Story, but at that time I didn't know, what this game would mean to me. So
it was part of the maturing process, I think.
Yeah.
One day we have to grow out of our Yoshi stories and into our realistic car sims.
Yeah, some of us, yeah. And I should go back and play Yoshi's Story, because I have to admit I haven't touched that game since 1998, probably.
It's probably a good game to only have for a little bit of time. Like, there's not a ton, it's we described it as like, yeah, you could play it in one sitting. So you upgraded for a game. I think that you can, we'll talk about it, but I think you can spend hours upon hours upon hours playing this. Replay value, I think, is in a high supply here. So
yeah,
Darren, I know you said like you weren't big as much onto racing games on this, but I think I've heard you talk on other podcasts and before about how you will often pick up like new console drop, like get the new racing game to see like the nicest looking graphics you can. Yeah. I feel like this series in general has become part of that.
Gran Turismo. Yeah, I love Gran Turismo. I've played every entry, like the PlayStation Portable version as well. Like it's definitely like an all-time favorite series. But I don't obsessively like realistic or simulation like racing games in general. Like this is like enough for me. And I think it's like luckily it's because this is like the one that's like the high watermark for everything else to try and achieve. It's made by like someone who's clearly in love with and obsessed with like both like this sport and the industry and like all the mechanics behind it and everything. And like it shows up like in like the gameplay of it all. Like never before has a racing game really like made you think about like the weight balance or the suspension of your car, or understanding like downforce and in out of the apex of a turn and everything. Like I've joked before, but I genuinely believe that it's absolutely real. Like when I first got my driver's license, I never like was like a teenager driving with their parents or anything like on the roads and like, going into a parking lot of the high school to like figure out how to do a figure eight or anything like that at all. Like I never really drove at all. I played Gran Turismo and Gran Turismo 2. Gran Turismo 3, I think had also been out. So like growing up with Gran Turismo, like helping understand like weight and control and acceleration and like things like that, like in my head, like I wasn't going to go out and be like a street racer or anything, but like when I genuinely started to drive and take my driver's tests, like I passed it first time, didn't have any issues with it. It wasn't confusing or frustrating for me. It wasn't like a TV show or an episode of Boy Meets World where, he fails it 3 times and will never take Topanga out because he can't drive. Like literally was the simplest, like dullest afternoon for me at all, just to go and get my license with no fuss and everything. And I definitely credit it to like understanding and thinking about like mechanically how cars operate and everything due to games like Gran Turismo and specifically this series, like mostly over everything else. So definitely a big influence and big impact for me personally.
Oh, cool. Yeah. Educational tool almost. I myself, we'll get into it. Obviously this is a game that, I've only played a little bit in passing, stuff like that. So I was excited to finally kind of give some time to spend like playing it and stuff. And, I don't know. We'll save it a little bit I know this is a new experience for you, McKenna, as well. Why don't we just give us the description and let's get into talking about it.
Gran Turismo is a realistic racing simulator featuring 11 tracks and 140 real-life cars that control based on actual physics. In the game's main mode, you'll participate in a spot race, special event, time trial, or the GT League, in which 4 cups are held. To race in the GT League or a special event, you'll need to acquire the appropriate license by passing a series of driving tests. For each race, you'll need to do a qualifying run, which will determine your position in the final race. You'll also be able to do test runs before and after your qualifying run. You can buy, sell, and tune up cars, using money earned from races to upgrade to better, faster cars so you can win more difficult races. You can even spend your hard-earned cash at the car wash to clean up after a race. There's also an arcade mode where you'll run a 2-lap race against 5 CPUs, alone in a time trial, or with a friend in 2-player mode. Choose your car and show off your mastery of drifting and cornering in Gran Turismo.
Okay, so yeah, Gran Turismo, directed by, well, now known as Polyphony Entertainment, directed by Kazunori Yamauchi, and published by Sony. We were talking about this a little bit before we recorded it in messaging. Adam, you pointed this out to me. I'd seen some gameplay footage of this as well, but this game was sort of predated by a game they had worked on called Motor Tune Grand Prix.
Yeah.
Oh, and Darren with the copy there.
Nice.
Okay.
Coming in clutch.
So, well, Darren, have you spent much time like playing that game or anything? Like, what's it like?
Yeah, it's I mean, I did it for one of like the book projects I was working on. It appears to be like a family friendly, easily pick up and play like kart racing style thing. But to master that game, you also have to think like realistically, like with driving like a same like Gran Turismo mindset. There's like, again, the apex of the turn is really the best way to get through it, not just to fly through it or like hard brake or anything. There's drafting off of people in front of you and everything. There are items and things, and it is a very cartoony design. It is designed to look like a cartoon, hence the title Motor Tune. And when you drive, your cars like sway like they're an animated cartoon, like in a really exaggerated way, which you can actually control in the options menu as well. But it is it's a super fun game. Well, bright, colorful, like easy to kind of play. Like it's a game kids can definitely play and think they're having a good time with and be fine with. But then like parents could probably sit down and obsess over and master and then just completely dominate and wipe the floor with their kids every time and make them never want to play it again.
Yeah, it looked like it had like a mode where you play like with realistic racing cars as well, right? So I feel like you can see some of the beyond the gameplay, like, pushing towards that sort of aesthetic. Adam, you've spent some time with this game as well?
Yeah, I actually only got around to playing it semi-recently, but I had heard stories about this game and how it pretty much was like the Trojan horse for like Gran Turismo's like physics system. Kaz basically went to Sony like early on in his career there and said, I want to make a game like Gran Turismo. And they were like, no, nobody wants that. And he said, okay, well, I'll like make a secretly like very sophisticated handling cartoony sort of Mario Kart racing game, but that actually has like real physics underneath it. And he kind of like developed that and honed it, and it ultimately bore out in Gran Turismo. And you can feel it when you play the game, like Darren was saying. It definitely feels like there's more going on. Also, like all the vehicles in Motor Tune, like all the characters, like have very different handling styles. And then you have that mode that you were talking about, Goo. That's like I think it's called Motor Tune R. You basically beat the game, and you can drive like a Formula One style car. And all of a sudden now it's like a real car, like a real racing game. And it just shows you that like they were thinking about this the whole time that they were making this game. It's really cool.
Yeah, it was. Oh, sorry. Go ahead. Well, I was just going to add on to that. Yeah, it's like a hidden mode in it. Technically, the Motor Tune Grand Prix we got in North America was the sequel, so it's actually the second one. So, like, it's exactly that. Like, it was the Trojan horse. They were told no, like that they can't work on that, but that like they secretly were putting all the engine and physics and everything all in it behind the scenes. And like that mode, I think, is even further of like clearly they're even hiring artists or like having their artists on staff like render out cars and everything that are realistic, under payroll and everything to like just hide it in as like a fun mode and everything. And it's only just because they knew they'd clearly be pitching it. And if it was successful, they'd have like, more of a leg to stand on. And luckily they did. They got a chance to do Gran Turismo. So It's a really cool, fun story on how he was told no, but no doesn't mean no in game development apparently.
I love what you said, like a Trojan horse. Like he kind of like got to make the game, and I had read that they started developing Gran Turismo in '92, but MotorTune came out in '94. So I wonder if they're like kind of talking about like that as sort of like a part of that or something. Like maybe, I don't know what you would consider. The
timelines, I mean, Kaz has done a lot of interviews about it. The timelines are a little bit fuzzy. I get the sense that he was always working on this. He just didn't really tell Sony about it, or he had, the teams back then were rather small, and they were kind of able to sort of work on things in the background, even when they weren't given the green light. And then once like 2 comes out, then it's only, I think, a year between MotorTune 2 and Gran Turismo. But then it's like full steam ahead. And by then, obviously, you had Sony's blessing. And even like the development from like that first MotorTune we didn't get, that was practically a launch title in Japan. And the one that we did get, MotorTune 2, like those are night and day. Like it's clear they learned so much about the system and became so good at harnessing the PlayStation in just those 2 years. It's really remarkable. And then, of course, you play Gran Turismo and it's obvious.
Yeah, I think that the part of it was like Sony was trying to greenlight like just as many games they could. They knew the problem they were going to face with the PlayStation launch was not having like enough in-house or like original titles and stuff. So I read about it in like in the development of Parappa, like Nana Ansha, the developers there, like they were like, you want to make a music game? Like, sure, we could use one of those. Like we need those. Like, and so they were just like saying okay to like anything and everything that people wanted to do just to have like a bolstered like library of variety and things. So he probably was working on a racing game early on and was like, yeah, we need a racing game. Go for it. Like do whatever, do something. And like, so he was cooking probably up ideas and everything. And then when it came time to actually start to, put the coding and things like that in place to actually produce the game, then maybe that's what was leaned into the MotorTune series instead. But probably always just something that was being like talked about in discussions and planning rooms and stuff like that, long in advance.
That's great. Yeah, that's such a fun origin story, like that it came out of like more of a kart racer type game. Like that's just so fun. So I guess we've kind of talked about history with the game a little bit. Like Darren, you talked about like it taught you how to drive basically. But I guess, more specifically, like what do you, I guess, remember, like what was your kind of first interaction with Gran Turismo, and like, how did you feel about it? Like at the time you first played it?
Yeah. I mean, 98 was a big year. I was, I'm the old man on the show. I was 12 in 98. So that was, like definitely a time where I'm like, I grew up, I've mentioned this before, we've talked about this many times before too, like I kind of aged with like the industry and with PlayStation and everything, like as games became less and less like arcadey and like one and done or like sit down single play experiences, and they became longer form, like that's as I was getting older and maturing as well too. So 98 had Resident Evil 2 was out that year, Tekken 3 came out that year, Metal Gear Solid was out that year. And then Nintendo 64 had like a Zelda game or something. I don't think people were that excited about that one.
Like that,
but there was like a lot going on. But to have like this, this game was just like I said, I wasn't huge into necessarily the racing genre, but like it was more than pick up and play. It was pick up and play, but then like you started to master and understand like the little things and all that stuff. And you already talked about it, Goop, but like the value of it, because of the replay value, was like that was something I specifically remember obsessing over. And as a kid on a budget, like the game, it's like I have the physical copy, but it came in that double disc case, even though it's a single disc game. And I was like,
I was concerned about that because I recently bought a physical copy of it, and I was like, oh no, like did I mess up?
Where's disc
where's disc 2? Yeah, no, it has the instruction manual, but then it also has a reference manual that explains so much of like the mechanics of driving and tuning your car and all the manufacturers and everything. And that's like a 70-page secondary manual. Like, so to me, I was like, all right, this is a chunky, beefy case on the shelf. It's got a lot of weight to it. What is in this package? Like, this has got to be worth it alone just because of how heavy this case is. And then like taking it home and playing it. And like, initially it was like, by default, I put in I played like the arcade mode first, just because like, oh yeah, that's what you do. Like Tekken, I want to see the endings. Like, let me find the car. Like, what's this about? And it was like, okay, this is a racing game. Got it. But then once you go into the simulation mode, like, it's like you've got that allowance to start with, and you can only afford like a low level car. And then like the license tests were like, wait, what is going on here? Like, I don't care that this is a front engine rear wheel, like what is what weight displacement is not something I want. I just want to go fast. Like, let me go fast. And yeah, it was just cool to like grow up with it. You know, I wasn't an 8-year-old who was just trying to want to like whip around corners at 180 miles an hour. Like, that is fun in a lot of games and everything, but this is a game that like taught me to like, no, if you really want to win here, you do have to like understand and like get some of the science behind it, and kind of like, you know, be patient and understand like all the ins and outs to help you get like the fastest time or get to that first place finish and everything. So it was a great thing. I was there, like, you know, definitely like that summer. I had it, you know, during that summer of release and everything, and it was like definitely an obsession for me for months.
Yeah, that's great. I can appreciate that. Like, we busted open the manual, and we were like, oh, we have like one of these in my glove box in my car. Just like the car manual you get.
Yeah.
Our copy didn't come with both manuals.
We
so,
just
like,
have the car.
I like opened it up, and I'm looking through, and I'm like, this isn't telling me how to play, like, control the game. This is talking about like how to actually drift.
Yeah.
So I had to go look up the actual manual, and both of them are very beefy.
Yeah, there is. Well, we can talk about that too. I feel like there is a little bit of like, I feel like there's a bit of a steep learning curve in that like simulation aspect of like, at least for me, I struggle with that a bit. But
well, I do
Adam,
have to
also want.
Real quick, since you've read the manual, like either of you, Goo or McKenna, have either of you hopped in a car and decided to like think about the weight disbursement and maybe take a corner at an extra higher speed or anything like that at all? Or are you still driving casually?
Those skills carry over. Yeah.
You know, I think like the day after we played, it had been raining, and I was like, oh, the manual said that like the surface of the road right now would be great for learning how to drift.
Which is really funny because there are no wet weather or rain effects in Gran Turismo 1. So
they're just, you know, covering all their bases, I guess.
Yeah.
I drove. I spent hours this morning playing the game, and then I did drive somewhere to get lunch with a friend. And while I was driving, I was like, because spoilers, I was struggling with one of the license tests, and I was like, this is so hard. And I'm driving today, and I'm just like making a normal left turn at a light, and I'm like, I made that turn okay. Like, like I'm like, it makes sense in a real car, like how to drive, but I guess I'm not driving at 140 miles an hour, so it's hard to say. Adam, we talked about like your sort of origin with it, but was this game like, do you feel like this is a big part of like, you know, you becoming like, you're like a car guy now, like you're into car stuff?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I owe like my career and my interests and everything to like this, probably Need for Speed 2 specifically. But these two games, because they like, more than, you know, the simulation aspect, which it took me obviously like a long time because I was very young, like I was saying, like I don't think I fully grasped how to play Gran Turismo, any of them properly, until I was probably like 11 or something, maybe, like by the time GT3 or whatever came out. But it kind of just opened up like a world of like the automotive industry to me that I learned about so much through this game. Like, I didn't know what a TVR was. I didn't know what an Aston Martin was, you know? And then like all of these cars out of Japan that many of them were not sold here back then. We didn't have the Nissan GTR back in the 90s. The Lance Revolution was not sold in America. And it was off the back of Gran Turismo and the popularity of that series that those companies ended up selling those cars in America as well. So for me, like, there definitely is an aspect of like, I learned, you know, how cars handle and the parts that go into them and how every component impacts the way that a car behaves. But that was a slower process. I think, you know, for me, GT1 specifically, it was just like there was so much to learn. Like it was an encyclopedia of cars for kids, you know, of our generations that, like, you know, kind of their love or their interest of like the automotive industry or whatever, like automotive subculture you want to talk about. Like it started here for a lot of people, and that's definitely the case for me.
That's cool. Yeah. I just kind of missed out on it. I feel like obviously I didn't have a PlayStation. I would mostly play at my cousin's. I know like years later I had friends who it's funny at the time thinking of like 10 years ago or whatever, like thinking of like the PS2 as old. But I remember having some roommates who were like, oh, I was at my mom's and I dug out my old PS2 and I got Gran Turismo 3 and like, you know, like watching him play it a bunch of stuff and being like, this is cool. But yeah, not a game that I've spent a ton of time with. And McKenna, sorry, we've kind of not gotten to you on this game yet, but you're a first time player of the game as well, like me.
Yes.
What'd you think?
Well, when I did look at the reference manual, I was like, oh my god, have I gotten in over my head here? Like,
I felt that way a few times.
What am I getting into? And then when we started playing, just the visuals, I was like, we've played a lot of N64 racing games already, and this looks better than.
Not only that, I think it looks like it makes all of them look like horrible, like bad games.
It's the raw power of the Nintendo 64. You know, it's struggling.
Yeah.
Yeah. Obviously, things aren't as
especially the more realistic N64 ones.
Yeah.
Like I think if you're like,
yes.
I still think some of the less realistic ones, you know, get away with not having as great graphics just because they're not.
They have like a cool style to them or something.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. If you compare this to like, I'm thinking of like Top Gear, Automobile, Lamborghini, like
Automobilia, Lamborghini,
doing the hands. You know, that game looked all right, but this game, I don't know. I feel like, you know, some people would talk about a game from this time and be like, oh, it looks good for its time. But to me, I'm just still like blown away by the visuals of this game and everything. Like there's no like, I don't know.
Nothing's like loading in as you're getting to it.
Yeah, like that's a good standard to me. There's like a couple trees or something you might catch sometime, or you'll maybe like catch the outside of a course or whatever. But yeah, nothing like immersion breaking, and all the stages look distinct and cool, and there's like a good amount of them. That's I think, yeah, if you compare this head to head with, again, any racing game we've played, like in more of this realm, it's not even close.
Yeah.
I think I said this to Adam, but I think just the arcade mode alone in this game, like if it didn't even have the simulation mode, it would be better than like a lot of just N64 games in general we've played, but yeah, especially the racing ones.
Yeah, I mean, you look at other racing games from this time, and it's kind of easy to overlook how much the quantity aspect of Gran Turismo is important beyond just the quality. But like the arcade mode disc alone would be another racing game, just like any racing game. And also that game probably wouldn't handle as well or even then maybe have quite as much content. I mean, we're coming out of the days of like arcade ports that, you know, oh, in the arcade you had 3 cars. Now what if you had 6? You know, like that's what we were dealing with. So the quantity, but just in addition to that, like the level of care and the level of detail, like car models in video games at this time, like you look at a game like Need for Speed 2, which as I said, I really like, but God, they're awful. Like they look terrible. They're like not at all. Like they were fairly cool, I guess, because they were still trying to, this was still a time where like licensed cars were still relatively new. So it's like, okay, they're trying to do a McLaren F1 or a Ford GT90. That's neat. but they looked bad. Whereas like you look at a model of a car from Gran Turismo, any of them, and it's instantly recognizable as to what that's supposed to be. And it looks good too. Like it's like a faithful, like low poly model. And that's just the kind of thing that you did not see back then. It was very uncommon. So I think right there, it sort of indicated that like there is an attention to detail here from the people who are making this game, that like they didn't just like get, you know, Toyota's license or whatever and said, here's a Supra. They were like, no, this is gonna be the most realistic Supra you've ever seen in a video game before.
Yeah. Darren, I'm sure that made you happy that we were quite fond of this over any N64 game.
Yeah, well, I mean, to be fair, like the hardwares had their different strengths and weaknesses. You know, like Gran Turismo is pretty quick with its load times, but obviously you don't get like load times with Nintendo 64 games. And yes, it looks smooth, or it looks nice on the PlayStation 1, but you have that classic like texture warble, you know, like, you know, stuff like that Nintendo 64 didn't have. You know, maybe it had you know, more stressed or stretched or like lower resolution textures, but they were like they were smooth and structured and would wrap accordingly and not like have that weird visual hiccup that the PlayStation was, you know, common with. So I mean, there's pros and cons to it, but no, it is also just, it's the team. I mean, it's the engineering, it's the understanding of the hardware. It's them, like, they took this, like, they somehow not only did this with the first game, but on the same hardware, you know, had Gran Turismo 2 come out, which improved upon everything. Car counts, track counts, you know, lighting, day and night. Like, there's like so many different things that they blew up on. And then ever since then, like, every entry in the Gran Turismo series is just another, like, how they can push and stress and like get the most out of every like PlayStation platform, you know, that's been in existence. And it's like, they're really just technically sound. So, I mean, you know, it wasn't like every single racing game just looked like this on the PlayStation. This was just a very special game. And, you know, it's the reason why it sold as well as it did. It's the reason why it's still around to this day and everything. This was just, you know, it got it right, and it did well. It did good for itself.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think that you're talking about like the texture, the warble or whatever. There's like a sort of like a sharpness or like a jaggedness or like pixelatedness to, especially when things are like farther away. Like on some of the tracks when you're looking and things are far away, it first looks like a little bit like, what is that? But it gives you enough time as you're approaching that it looks good. And one thing I noticed too is that I've seen the game running. I watch videos of like the game running in like Duck Station or something like that. Something now where it's like, it looks like smoother, and I like didn't like it. I actually think like the aesthetic where it's like a little bit more like pixely and stuff, like it actually looked, especially where I was playing on our like CRT, like I thought it looked like cool, and it still gave me that, you know, there's that thing with like we mentioned a little bit, like where you get the racing game to see like what the cool new best graphics look like, and they're supposed to look the most realistic. And people say like that ages poorly sometimes because the newest thing always makes like the older thing look a little bit more quaint. But I don't know. I still got, like I said, I still got that feeling like looking at this in its original form, as opposed to like a, you know, a emulated version or whatever, where I was like, oh, I can like see like how inspiring this must look to people in 1998. And it honestly still to me looks pretty breathtaking now, you know, especially on some of the, you know, the courses like where you're going in tunnels and there's cool lights and stuff like that. So still a very visually appealing game.
There is, when you get to the end of the game, you unlock this mode called, just like they were doing the Motor Tune, there's one called GT Hi-Fi. And it takes one of the night courses, the special stage Route 11, and gets rid of a lot of the scenery so that the game can run at 60 frames per second. Which is like the kind of thing that, I mean, back then, you know, now everybody talks about frame rate, of course, and people did back then, but, you know, being a kid and like stumbling across that, you're like, the game feels different, but like, I don't know why, you know, but they were clearly even then thinking about like, we want to hit 60, we're not satisfied with 30. And then they would, you know, when they went on to PlayStation 2, because the PS2 was a beast when it came to that stuff. So, yeah,
I would say too, like, that made me think like the game does in general just like run pretty well. Like I didn't really ever notice like I said, I noticed things popping in and stuff, but I never felt like, oh, this is like sluggish or whatever. You know, you notice a couple load times, but they're quick. So pretty pleasant. Another way, I in terms of the vibes that I was thinking is, we've had 2 games total so far on the N64 with licensed music, but this game has like a bunch of that in like the racing and stuff, and I think like and just in general the original music, like for the menus and stuff, very cool, especially going along with some of the like the videos, like the actual like videos that they have in the game, and the startup menu. Did you have any feelings on the music, McKenna? I know we've heard some of the songs like a lot.
Yeah, there's just like a huge variety of it. I like when you're buying your vehicles, or like each like dealership has their own has its own music. I thought that was really cool, just giving them all, like, just presentation wise, like the dealerships having their own, tune-up shops having their own names and music.
Yeah, they all had kind of like a slightly different identity, and like yeah, that's a great point. I feel like even the songs you'd hear in racing, like the racing, there was like different variety too. There was like some more like rock tracks, some more like electronic vibes, and I think it all was pretty cohesive. Yeah.
Do you guys know about the differences in the soundtrack between like the Western version and the original in Japan?
I read a little bit about it, like they're but yeah, please explain.
Yeah, no, it's just they completely, like, nowadays Gran Turismo is known for like, jazz and that kind of like jazz fusion sort of style and stuff, like Weather Channel music, which I don't say disparagingly. I love that stuff. And Gran Turismo is why. But when they were coming out with this first one, I guess Sony, Europe and maybe America, like they weren't so sure that the jazzy soundtrack would play well in the West. So the original soundtrack of the game was composed by a man named Osamu Ohira, who like would compose ton of Gran Turismo music, and I think may still, maybe not so much anymore, but his music has stayed, like certain tracks, songs he's done have stayed with the series forever, even to like GT7 today. But they replaced it with a sort of that industrial, electronic soundtrack that you hear in the menus and stuff, that was done by Jason Page, who I believe a British musician who like did a lot of stuff for Sony back in the day. I think he put that together fairly quickly too. Like there was not a lot of time, and he pumped out like all the songs for the different dealerships, and that is a big part of the game's identity. I went and I played, like I did a serious like playthrough of the Japanese version, I think back during like COVID times. And it felt wrong to me, because like the music and like the sounds I would expect to hear that like sat with me from the time I was a kid, like it was almost kind of surreal, because it was still Gran Turismo music. It was music that's very much associated with the series, but it wasn't what I associated with GT1. So I think whatever soundtrack you grew up with, they're both great, but very different feel. And then once GT2 came around, the series had proven itself. Like after GT1, it was jazz all around the world. They stopped doing the difference there. The licensed music would usually change by region, but they had the menu music be the same everywhere.
Yeah, I feel like whether it is like the jazz they kind of stuck with now, or like the menu music they have here, I think both styles can kind of contribute to that feeling that you were describing, Darren. Well, actually, really both of you, but Darren, like that idea of like it feels more mature than like a video game, like a lot of games you might have played before, like where maybe it's like, I'm thinking of like, I don't know, like Cruisin' USA or something, where it's a little more arcade. It's like silly, I'm not saying Gran Turismo is the first like racing game to have serious music, but it feels like, oh, this is like music like adults would listen to, you know what I mean? There's like cool jazz and like, stuff for smart people in here.
There's none of that. What's that god awful song from San Francisco Rush? It's like Rush Rave or something like that. It's horrible.
Yeah. There's nothing like that.
Hey everyone, my name's Darren Hupke. I'm a writer, publisher, and podcaster. My podcast is called Pixels and Polygons. Each week I sit down with a guest and ask one simple video game question. It's a random topic each week and it leads to a fun conversation. You can find it on your favorite podcast platform every Friday, and you can read more about it at pixelsandpolygons.net.
I don't know if this is one of those games, but there's like cool-ish bands on here.
Yes. Yeah.
I don't know. Like, Darren, there's that thing of like, we talk all the time about like Tony Hawk soundtracks, like getting people into like new music. Like, do you know of anything like that with Gran Turismo? Like, have you ever felt that way?
I mean, obviously, Gran Turismo 2 famously has Rob Zombie's Dragula, which is the only video game that song's ever appeared in. It's never appeared in other video games at the time. But yeah, I mean, they're like, I think I really started to pay more attention to the Gran Turismo like licensed songs and all that stuff. Like with Gran Turismo 3, there was I think it's a Goldfinger cover of like 99 Red Balloons.
Oh wow!
But
they're in like so many games, huh?
Yeah. I mean, like obviously Superman from Tony Hawk, just tie it all together. But I mean, they like, I think maybe that's the power of Sony, obviously being able to go to the parent company and hey, we have an entire arm of our company who controls like music rights and things like that, so we can use this as a way to like branch out and put things in. But yeah, I think they did a good job. They even released the music of Gran Turismo CD like in the early 2000s or something like that, that had a lot of the the more popular licensed songs and everything on that as well too. So music is a very motivational thing. I've always been like in a weird space where like when I'm doing something, like I can remember playing Final Fantasy VII for the first time, and unfortunately, I don't know if it's not necessarily a bad thing, but my brother was really into Sublime at the time. So like when I'm hearing when I hear Sublime songs now, I just get this sense memory of like doing a lot of like different Final Fantasy VII like moments and everything like that at all, and they're like sense memory tied to that and everything. So like a good soundtrack, whether it's part of the game or just happening around you, unfortunately, in the same room because your brother's using the stereo, it can really like help kind of like tie it all together for you. So yeah, Gran Turismo's always done a good job with their soundtracks. I think it's not maybe always my cup of tea per se, but it does fit well with what you're doing. And like it's not loud and abrasive or anything. They always find like a good mix of like high energy that goes along with some of like the tension of like a really strong racing line or a really strong like racing performance.
Yeah, it was maybe less like punk than like a Tony Hawk soundtrack, but still like kind of like there was like what Garbage was in there.
Yeah,
like there's like alternative music in there that's like kind of cool for its time. It's not like I can't even think of a good like a cheesy band from the time, but it's not like Aerosmith or something. I don't know.
No Counting Crows.
Right. Yeah.
would not want to drive to August and everything after. That would not be fun.
I'm imagining the Aerith scene playing out with smoke two joints.
Yeah.
Okay, McKenna, what'd you think about just actually like the gameplay aspect of it? We talked about the visuals, but did you have fun playing it?
Yeah, it definitely took some effort to get used to. I spun out a lot.
I have definitely spun out a lot. Yeah,
I think we have a Twitch clip of me just like I was just spinning for a minute. Like I'm not even.
That was in the arcade mode too. I feel like even that mode, like it's definitely a bit more tricky than like the average racing game that we've had experience in. Not that there haven't been some where we just go flying or whatever, but this one I feel like it's clearly like a bit easier than the simulation mode, but I feel like it has some physics that you have to take note of still.
Yeah, I actually liked a lot of the qualifying runs where I could just drive by myself.
By yourself, yeah.
Like enjoy the view. I think the big forest was a really nice one to drive on. Get some like mountain views. But I really liked the like I guess campaign of it. Pretty much all the other racing games we've played is just like you play the races, and if you do well, you'll unlock some more cars and courses. But this has really something to work towards. Like you're earning money from the races, you're buying better cars so you can do better in your races.
And it was very noticeable. Like I would do like get some money from like a cup or something, and then I'm gonna like invest a little bit in my car, and like if I would rerun the same cup again, like you even if you don't know, like I'm just buying things, I don't know exactly, like I'm reading what they say they do, but I'm like, okay, I don't know how that actually helps me. But then
you don't know how that carbon drive shaft is going to give you 7 more horsepower, or like the port polishing of the engine is going to add 11 more horsepower to your overall ride. I mean, it's all right there. It's self-explanatory.
Exactly. I didn't even know what to start by. I eventually found like a game FAQ where someone was like, here's like the order you should buy things in. And I don't even know if that's true, but I was just like, okay, fine. I'll buy all the things they say, and then I'll try a race. And I definitely noticed like, oh yeah, like I'm accelerating quicker, I'm turning better. I bought 4 things, so I'm not sure which is doing what, but it was still fun it was like an RPG in a way. Like, okay, I did some battles, I've got some experience. Now I'm going to go, test myself in battle again.
Mm-hmm.
It was, and that provides, like, I feel like I've already put hours and hours into it, and I feel like I've only scratched the surface with it.
What I like about it is these games have kind of always been secretly like as like complicated as you want them to be. Like I have never gone into Gran Turismo and like tweaked the gear ratios on a transmission I installed in the car. I just haven't done that. I will, get a new muffler that gives a car 10 extra horsepower and bigger turbo and better tires, and that's pretty simple. You don't need to like tweak things. I think people have sort of like, maybe not anymore, but like at the time there was a misconception that like this game was like you shouldn't even bother playing it if like you're not ready to do math.
Okay.
And it definitely, like, it is, don't get me wrong, like for all the reasons we're explaining, like it has more going on under the hood, obviously. And if you are that sort of person who's like really crazy about this stuff, you can go there if you want, but you can also just put a big stupid turbo on a Civic and give it 200 extra horsepower and call it a day. I think that's what most people probably did.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Darren, are you getting in there like messing with the numbers and stuff like that?
No, I'll upgrade it, obviously. And as a kid, I was like, I don't want to buy tires. I want to buy this turbo kit, and I want to buy this. Right. And I always thought it was a waste of money to spend money on tires. Like, that's so boring. Even as an adult, like if my tires are wearing down on my car, is the least exciting thing I want to spend my money on. I'm like, this seems like insane that I have to spend money
have to change these. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. But a good pair of tires, some racing soft tires, suddenly can make this car that was unwieldy and like making you spin out and go crazy and all that stuff is suddenly like gripping to the track, and you're able to suddenly take corners and turns that at a higher speed than you ever thought was possible. And so like it just helped me, maybe again, just like teaching me kind of how to drive. It taught me more about how a car interacts with the road, and thinking about the physics of it, and thinking about, what's actually happening like in the process of the whole thing. So like, all the tuning stuff, I would just buy them. I would never mess with that. The only time I ever messed with any, gear ratios and like all that's like the manual changes, those things, was in Gran Turismo 3. There's this like Pikes Peak Suzuki Escudo like car, celestial car, and you could like break the game and make it go like 2 million miles an hour and all that stuff by by making it do a wheelie, and it's like you're breaking the physics of the game. It's not actually like capable of doing that. Everything was kind of fun. And sometimes you'd also there were some 24-hour races. There were like some or they weren't 24 hours, but they were endurance races. There were like multi-hour long races and stuff you could do. And there was one on an oval track, and if you mapped like acceleration to the left analog stick leaning in the right direction, and then mapped like turning left to pushing left on the right analog stick. It's kind of weird to sound, but you'd put a rubber band on the analog sticks and those two would tilt together. And if you had the right like gear ratio and things like that set up, you essentially would be able to automatically drive and win that race, like a 6-hour race or something like that, and win a bunch of money, and then be able to go out and buy a bunch of cars and tune those up and things like that. So I've messed with those things on some like high end nerd level of just to like cheat the game a little bit, but personally, I love you get what you get from it. Like you were saying, Adam, if you want to obsess over that stuff, sure. But if you don't, there is still so much content there to like have access to be able to compete and to participate in all levels of the races, to be able to get your international license test and complete that final cup and everything, without needing to like go that hardcore about it. But it's there if you want to. And I'm sure there are some weirdos out there who definitely enjoy doing that. Yeah.
Yeah. I never felt like I had to start messing with that sort of stuff. And I also like, I don't know. I don't think it doesn't seem, again, I've only scratched the surface. Like, I feel like I could put like more time in this than like I've put into like any RPG or anything I've played, and still have a lot to learn. But I never felt like I never have like learned how to play any games where you have to do like a manual like gear change or whatever. And I feel like that would probably greatly help in this game, but I never fully felt like even the game like demands you to learn that. McKenna, you made a good comparison point of like getting in there and messing around with all that stuff. You talked about it, how you've kind of interacted with some like sports games that we've played.
Yeah, I guess we kind of most of our sports games we just kind of played like one-off games, and not really gotten into like the season stuff, or like not gotten into like the more like detailed kind of stuff, like
team management and stuff like that.
Yeah, and you need to spend a lot more time than we are to really get into that, I think.
And you have to kind of be into it, I guess.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Yeah, and I was saying like this could be the only game that you play.
Yeah. Definitely. I could continue to play this for hours and hours, but I like we just have other games we have to prepare for. So
yeah.
But I feel like a lot of the better like sports game we've played, like they walk like a good line where it's like you can engage with that stuff if you want, but it's a perfectly fun game without it.
Yeah.
I don't know if I think there was a wall I sort of hit in this where, and I think I've talked to you both about this before the recording, and I kind of like, it kind of has made me feel bad. Like I kind of feel bad about this where I've gone through like the early cups you can do, and I've like improved my car and everything. And I'm like, okay, I want to get the better cars now and do more races. And I just can't beat the final license of the A licenses. And McKenna has witnessed me these past few days. I've played them for hours upon hours. And I'm like, the best I ever got for the final test was, I think I got it within the second, but that was among like a million tries. And I feel like I'm looking at the times you have to get, and it's like I'm like, a second off to get the bronze, and then silver and gold are only a few seconds from that. And I'm like, I don't know if it's just like, at first I was saying like, I don't think I just understand. Like, I don't think I understand like the mechanics of cars that much and exactly what I'm supposed to be doing. And a lot of like guides for it and stuff act like it's kind of like obvious. They're like, just power slide through the turn. And I'm like, well, I'm trying to learn how to do that, but it's really hard to just read or watch a video. Like I need like a driving coach, like sitting in the passenger seat, like kind of describing it. But so that being said, I feel like it could just be me, and it has made me feel bad because I wanted to go farther, but I just feel like I can't do it. I feel like I'm not cut out to get that A license, and I feel like I don't know, could it just be a little bit easier to get the bronze on that last one?
I went back and I because we were talking about this, I went back and I did the first 2 licenses earlier today, and there is a bit of a jump for sure in difficulty between A and B. When you by the time you get to A, there were 2 in particular that were like, I was like, these are harder than I expected. One was the MR2 on Deep Forest, and then the other one was I think A8 was giving you trouble. Goo. I was okay with that one, but there's one where you're driving a Skyline, an R33 Skyline, through like the first sector of Trial Mountain, and I had to do that like a bunch of times. And going back, I think there's this kind of feeling you have when you go and you play a game again that you know like the back of your hand or whatever, and you do like a license test in Gran Turismo. You're like me and you're like, oh, I got this, like first try, I don't even have to try, I'm gonna get bronze. And I had to do it a bunch of times. So I don't think it's just you, Goo. I think they definitely turn up the heat later on. Maybe it's because they want to make sure you understand the fundamentals. What I will say is that I didn't know what the hell I was doing as a kid, and if I just skated by those tests, I wasn't applying a single thing I learned to races that I later won. So it's just like, you know, if you're able to get by, great, and then like don't beat yourself up too much if you're like not modeling, you know, the behavior that that you were supposed to because you got the A license, right?
Yeah, I need this podcast to feel a little bit better.
Well, let me bring you down then, because it's the easiest thing in the world to do, and I can't believe you couldn't do it. No, I'm just kidding. Well, the licenses, though, like, I mean, if you do want to give it a try, like if you're not going to retire from this without like maybe giving it one more attempt, like maybe try once more. But all of the, you know, the 1 through 7 of that A list are all like sections that they're trying to teach you the mechanics of like, you know, starting at the outside of a turn, you know, brake before you start to turn so that your weight's on the front end of the car, and then accelerate at the apex to lead out. Like there's all the 1 through 7 is teaching you something about like how to take a certain type of turn or how to take a certain type of you know, section of the track and everything. And then that last one is you just trying to put it all together. So if there is a corner that you're just doing terribly at, like in the 8th one and the final one, just try and go back to that license test that's like replicating that same turn style, and maybe just try that again and again to feel like, okay, let me shave off 3 seconds off of this. And if I do that, then now I know when I go into the license test, I can shave some seconds off that turn that's been giving me trouble, you know? I will also say that as the series goes on, there are other like driving assist features and stuff that they add to it. Like even in Gran Turismo 7, like not only does it get more complicated and there's more things going on with all the cars, but you can have things like driving lines on where it like color codes like when you should accelerate or brake, you know, where a perfect driving line is of like in or out on the track, and like all these types of things that as you play with those on for a while, you can eventually then turn them off and start to get an idea of like what, you know, good skill is. So it may even be worth investing in. Play some Gran Turismo 7, you know, play a little bit of that, and then go back and try this A test on Gran Turismo 1 and complete it and finish it and everything. But I mean, I love Gran Turismo 7. Like it is like a museum and a history and a love letter just to the entire like sport industry. Like it is bite-sized and pick up and play like design, so you can give it, you know, 30 minutes or you can give it 3 hours. You can play it once a week or you can play it once a month, and like you just are always chipping away at progress, learning something new, getting some history on some cars, and it just graphically gorgeous like game to kind of look and see and everything too. So that could give you some skill if you want to dabble into something new.
Yeah, I was thinking about something like that. Like that would be nice, like having something like that because I have a hard time, like I like in the manual it does like describe like how to do these types of maneuvers to get through like corners at like a high speed or whatever, and I can watch videos, but I have a hard time like internalizing it from like reading it. Like I do learn from experience a bit more, and I did, granted, I did from like redoing a lot of these, I did get like a lot more efficient at like handling them, like learning kind of the hard way. But yeah, it was I was having a hard time like internalizing some of those things, or like then taking that to a different course and trying to apply the same thing. I'm still like, I think it just comes with more time playing, but I'm still like struggling with like okay, how fast am I going? How fast should I be going? Like, when should I brake? You know, it's not something that I have fully clicked with, but I want to, you know, so
you have the drive to improve for sure.
Yeah. You have the need for speed.
Not to twist the knife too much, Goo, but they did something kind of funny and also helpful in Gran Turismo 2. They introduced this thing called the Kids Prize, where if you fail,
now we're talking.
If you fail a test, like, they purposefully keep it vague. Like, sometimes you have to fail it like 10 times, sometimes you have to fail it like 7 times or whatever. But if you keep failing the same test, but you're within a second of the bronze time, they'll just give you the Kids Prize and they'll just count that as a pass. And
I would love that, to be honest.
Yeah, it's like the icon that they give like learner's permit drivers in Japan too. It's funny, but yeah. So,
well,
unfortunately, GT1 doesn't have that. So.
My equivalent of your struggle right now is in Gran Turismo 7. Like, I was like really gonna like try and get the platinum trophy for it and do it all. And one of the trophies is get a gold ranking in all of the license tests. And there is an S-class license, which is like a really brutal like tier as well. So getting gold on these, and they're not like, hey, here's a 13-second like 2-turn segment. They're full lap runs with like high-end cars to like get done and everything. And so like there's a few where I've, put the 4.5 minutes to try and get a lap done, and I'm like, 0.07 of a second off, and I'm like, what am I doing wrong here that I have to shave that much off? Like, this is insane. But it's brutal.
In that game, it's also like crazy shit that no one would ever do in real life, like drive a Porsche 917, which is this like insane Le Mans car from the 70s that you would die in at like a really hard racetrack in the pouring rain, and they call that a license test. Like, yeah.
No, you have to do that to get certified.
But the other thing you could do to recommend just to try and push yourself a little bit is, again, if you've gotten bronze on any of those other A tests, like go back and at least get silver on those. Like play those over and over again until you get silver. I think if you are good enough to get silver on segments 1 through 7, then that should be enough of like, hey, I'm like knowing my more top speeds that I can go on like some turns and all that stuff. I know like when I start to slip, clearly I'm going just slightly too fast, so I'll brake a little bit more or so, or just like those little tricks to learn, like don't brake while you're like hard turning and everything, because that's going to make you slip or something like that, But try and get silvers and all of those and shave off a few seconds to make sure that like, you're at least building skill there, and then you give that final one a go and give it a shot.
Yeah, because I know one of the previous ones in that gave me trouble is like a part of the final one. There was another one too. I can't remember.
Yep.
But it's funny. Like it was like that one I spent, the one that I did pass, I spent like a few hours trying to do it. And then I did it. And then like the next few, I just did the first try. And I'm like, I'm like, am I, like, I don't know. I don't know what I'm doing here. Why that was, I don't know. Some of them just make more sense to me than others, or like click with me more. So
yeah, they get more difficult. And also the thing about these early Gran Turismo games, which I find interesting, is if you go back and you play them now after playing like a modern simulator, they're obviously not extremely realistic. Like they feel almost more like an arcade game, like a Need for Speed would be, or like a Project Gotham Racing especially is probably like a good comparison. But at the same time, so like in Gran Turismo 1, I have this like feeling that I just want to like huck it into every corner and just drift through everything, because that game makes it really easy to do that. But at the same time, it does really respect and reward like, maintaining grip and like braking early. Like it's not the kind of game that I think at this time, probably what was confusing or difficult for a lot of people to grasp is like how much earlier you have to brake for corners in this game, and then like remember your braking lines, which is like a core part of racing. So like GT1's interesting because it's both like not very realistic, but also the way that you're good at it is still by respecting those like fundamentals of like good driving, good racecraft, all of those things. Yeah.
It's
Yeah, when
interesting
you're
you say
braking
that.
before a turn, like if you're braking too early, like your car's going and then you brake and it puts the weight on the back. If you then start to coast or like, get into the turn, now the weight starts to like equate or go back into the front of the car. And then you hit the turn, you lose traction. Try and make sure that you're braking so the weight's all the way in the back on some of these turns. And then when you start to turn, you still have all the weight on the back, keeping the grip on those back tires, allowing you to have more control through it and everything. So it is like, don't try it the same way every time. See if you brake a little earlier or brake a little later or brake a little less, and see if that helps you suddenly like, oh my gosh, I have way more control on this turn than I did before. And that might be the little thing that helps you too. But,
yeah. Well, that's actually a thing too. I was having a hard time with was I would try a different thing and it would go, whether it might go better or might go worse, but then I would have a hard time going like, okay, like, I'd really have to like, I'd often be like, okay, how fast am I going? Like, it's just too, I'm like maybe getting too old or something. Cause I'm like, I look at my odometer and I'm like, how fast? And then I look and I'm like going off the road and I'm like, oh God, like I'm just
never
not
speed bump there before.
Yeah. Look, I will tell you that like, I've been lucky enough to like go on the track in like actual cars and I am slow as hell because like everything is happening like too quickly for me to process like, what do I need to do in this corner to get like a good exit? And then also like I'm in the real car and if I fuck up, I die and I, or, best case scenario is I cost a company a lot of money. Right.
Yeah.
So it's like, yeah, it's the thing about racing is that like it is like trying to slow. I mean, I feel like they say this about like every sport, right? But it's like you try to like slow it down in your brain because it's all happening so quickly. And I think what makes people good at it, whether you're playing any kind of a video game, frankly, or you're doing it in real life, is like being able to process like the adjustments that you have to make in real time. Because it is like going through it over and over again. Like Darren was saying, you make these small adjustments, and it's like it's like a scientific method kind of thing, right? It's like, let me tweak this variable, see how it goes. Didn't work out. Try it differently the next time.
Yeah.
And the other thing I was thinking about too, as we've been talking about this, is one thing that this game is really, really punishing on. Actually, like I think it might be like its most sort of punishing aspect, even compared to modern racing games, is if you are not braking in a perfectly straight line, you will lose the car. In like a rear wheel drive car, especially like, and you think about that test that you're struggling with, the A8 at Grand Valley, when you go into that one hairpin, if you're not braking a straight line, you're gonna lose the tail and you're just gonna go off. And in later Gran Turismos, they would actually make that a lot easier. But GT1 is really tricky with that stuff.
Yeah, so I would notice sometimes if I just like slightly adjust, and I could already tell before I hit brake, like, oh, I fucked myself over. So, sorry, you had some thoughts on that aspect?
Gonna say I was skimming some reviews of the game, and like they pretty much all like universally praise the game's mechanics, but the one complaint I saw pop up multiple times was about the license tests.
And, so I can't be wrong.
Kind of
some random people
saying, if you can't get past this point, then it kind of locks off part of the game, which you would otherwise, like, even if you don't have the skill for some of these tests, you would have the skill for some of the races beyond those tests.
That's what I was thinking, because I was hitting the point in the early cup races where it wasn't even a challenge anymore. Like I'd beef my car up, just like even my first one, I started with like the Honda Civic, and I made it so powerful that I go do the Sunday Cup and I don't even see people in the rear view. So I'm like, okay, I'm doing way too well for this, but I also cannot beat this. And I was like, a couple of the times I did it, I was like, I felt great about that. Like, I feel like I killed it.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know. So then I tried again. Because clearly I felt like what I was doing was working. So I'm like, I guess I just got to try to go a little faster. But that's immediately when I start like, okay, maybe not that fast. Okay, how, and I spiral.
Yeah.
Then I just start emotionally spiraling a little bit.
You're emotionally spinning now, in addition to on the track.
But I will say all that is like that. It's not though. Like I feel like the mechanics of the game are so obviously good. Like it feels good while I'm doing that the whole time. And that's what's tough is like I'll feel like I did it and it felt good, but the game's like, no, you didn't do it good. Or you did it okay. And I'm like, okay, like I just wish it was like maybe a second more, like, because I got within like 2 seconds so much, and I'm like, I know I could do better, but give me the kids' fries a little bit. You know?
Yeah, there are also weirdos out there who will tell you that they love the license tests, and frankly, I think that's stupid. I don't. I never enjoy. Awesome. Yeah, no, conceptually they are. It's just like it does feel like, for me in Gran Turismo, it has always felt like a barrier to fun. And I guess, look, if you get something out of it, great. I'm not saying. I just mean people who like have been playing these games forever who are just like, I love doing license tests. I'm like, really? Do you really?
I think it's a cool like tutorial, you know, but it is like it's sort of like learning the hard way. Like I said, like when I learned to drive, you know, in real life, like I didn't learn from Gran Turismo like Darren. I had someone there, you know, telling me what to do, and like I guess that's just how I learn, like the actual act of doing, and like kind of having someone there. But I don't know. I might just, it might be a thing. Like it just might be something that is not as natural to me.
I did like just like the first few to get around the concept of cornering, because if I had just gone and started, I never would have thought about cornering.
Yeah.
It would have just been that thing that I remembered reading a little bit about in the reference manual. I was like, oh, this is how it works.
They give like little hints on how to do it, but sometimes I felt like it would distract me from like what I feel like the real goal that I had to do was.
Mm-hmm.
They'd just be like, look, be careful on this. I'm like, okay, is that what I really is? Maybe that, like, that's the key, is looking out for this, but instead it's, you know, you got to, I don't know. Well, anyway, that's a lot about talking about the licenses. Like, I feel like it only stands out to me because like the game plays and feels so good. And like, kind of Adam, what you were saying, like that it's not realistic. Like I would have had no idea. Like the game was, I've seen the, you know, the people talking about the game, like documentaries about it. I've seen the movie, and they talk about how these games are, you know, so realistic that someone who's good at driving can come in or someone who's good at the game can drive. And I bought into that even with this game, knowing that it can't be as advanced as what they have now. Like I'm playing this game and I'm seeing like, you know, the real racing simulator, which is like a hard thing to put under the name of your game. And I'm playing this and I'm like, this is good as driving a real car as far as I know.
Can't get better. Yeah, I mean, it is unquestionably like super sophisticated and real for its time. I mean, it should be said that like this wasn't the first like racing or driving simulator, like especially on the PC. There was a lot of stuff like the Jeff Crammond's Grand Prix and the Papyrus stuff, that's the team that makes iRacing now. Like there's a lot of stuff from like the early to mid 90s on the PC that's like just as, if not more punishing. But there was nothing like this on the console before, right? So it was like, and it was also probably the first game that wasn't specifically like targeting that sort of demographic of people who just eat, sleep, and dream, you know, car racing, right? It was getting like everyone's attention, because like you don't become the best-selling game on the PlayStation if you're not like also a mainstream hit, right? So I think it sort of made the idea of like real driving like palatable to a lot of people who otherwise would not have thought that, which is pretty cool. And again, to be clear, if you enjoy the license test, that's great. I don't mean to take that away from anybody. I just it sometimes it can be frustrating when you do want to move on to that next stage and you know, it's standing in your way.
Okay, Darren, I have one other thing that's sort of a faux console wars thing.
I'm ready
to talk about. That this game, you know, it came with, but kind of releasing around the time of this game was the DualShock controller, which we've talked about PS1 games on the show before, but we've typically played like whatever a re-release or played on a modern console. And look at that, boy! Jolting new force in gameplay. And so, we've defended the N64 controller on here. We love it for a lot of games, but you're playing on the dual shock controller. It's like this is like the modern controller here, and it feels good.
Yeah.
I don't know what else to say about it. It really did feel good to play it on like the original controller and everything, and like the sticks feel really nice. And I've obviously played with them back in the day at my cousin's and everything, but there's something about it that I feel like it I don't know, it felt good. The rumble feels good and everything. Like it feels more realistic than say the rumble pack on an N64 controller that just like shakes your whole body and it's just like unwieldy a little bit. Like this had like various type like subtlety and everything. And yeah, it's like that modern sort of dual stick control that they've sort of stuck with. So points to Sony there.
Oh, I thought you were going to try and draw me into some kind of debate or argument here. You're just admitting that, yes, this is a great controller. And yeah, okay. Yeah,
well,
I agree.
I'd rather play, Mario 64 or Ocarina of Time on a N64 controller or whatever. Yes, but yeah, like I've never played again, comparing this to like racing games we've played, like this is just a very, like, even I spent like hours and hours doing those license tests and it was a little frustrating, but like, because I like that tactile experience of the PS1 DualShock controller, it feels good, so I can't complain too much about my time with it,
Yeah. It's a great controller.
Great controller. Yeah. And they haven't really changed it too much since then. So, adding new features and things like that, but
I have these little foam stress. No, these are like foam squishy things, but they're, one looks like it's a DualShock 3 because it has the little LED indicators there if you want to get specific about it. But that was pretty close to that PS1 DualShock. And then the DualSense, style. It's, I
like the like fatness of the analog buttons. I feel like they've changed that since, like, they're not as like, but
they've
I
reduced
love
the size a bit. Yeah.
Yeah. I think they should go back to that. Obviously we talked about it's a best-selling PS1 game. You mentioned people in the reviews, maybe some people saying the license tests were too hard, but otherwise I feel like it's universally acclaimed game. Massive series. We talked about there is a movie. I would love to be we don't have to talk about the movie here. That's fine.
I don't like the movie. but I don't like most racing movies.
I like that it exists, but I don't know that I liked the movie.
Yeah.
It's fine. It's whatever, I feel like the racing scenes weren't as cool as they could have been, which is kind of like the selling point. But they did have some cool, like, video gamey stylistic stuff they threw in. But the racing scenes themselves were like, I've seen better racing movies, I feel like. And I'm not even into that stuff, but
I just remember feeling so weird when the movie starts and I'm sitting in a theater and I'm watching a kid play like Gran Turismo 1. Like there's like, scenes of like those games on the screen. I'm like, culture's weird, man. Like, how did this happen? How did this movie get made? Like, just odd seeing stuff like that, like, in a movie like that.
But that was like one of the first things that, like, I've known, the reputation of it or whatever, but that was one of the first things I saw, especially watching some behind the scenes stuff. But the scenes in the movie too, where they're talking about the Polyphony Studios and Kaz or whatever, and they're really hyping it up. And again, like I was all in on this like sort of propaganda for it. I was like, yeah, this is like so sick. Like they made like a real racing simulator, and it's like the coolest game on PS1, and everyone loves it. And I'm like, this is awesome. Like there's nothing better, basically.
Kaz makes a very cute cameo in that movie too, which I love. He's like a sushi chef.
Oh,
in one scene. Yeah.
He should have just played himself. I like that character wasn't like massive in the movie. They should just have him play himself.
I don't know why he didn't, but it's almost better that he's like just behind the counter, with the chef's hat.
Yeah, that is fun.
Yeah.
McKenna, any other stray thoughts that you had for Gran Turismo 1?
This would be fun to play with a wheel.
Oh, like the actual setup. Yeah. Like the guy in the movie.
Yes.
I feel like that might help me, actually.
Most racing games I play. Like, my favorite way to play a racing game is at the arcade with the whole wheel, brake, accelerator setup.
Maybe that's what we need to put us up. Maybe that's what'll get me past the final license test. Get me behind the wheel. Yeah, because this is kind of counter to your. You don't like braking, really?
Yeah, usually no. Usually I'm like, I don't want to brake in a racing game. I just want to go.
Just want to go fast.
Well, yeah. Maybe we'll get that set up. I love getting it for like this one specifically.
Yeah.
I mean, look, that movie is trying to sell. So, and I was just gonna say, a movie is like, it's an ad, not just for the game, but for all that hardware. I mean, if you buy all of it, it's like a couple $1,000s. They know what they're doing.
And for like iPods, remember he gets David Harbour like the iPods from listening to. I don't know if it was an iPod, but probably was. Or does Sony have a? I don't know. They don't. Well, a Walkman. Was it a Walkman?
Yeah. They have their own. They have a digital one as well, too. A high end one. I forget the name of that one, but yeah.
Yeah, that's my MP3 player. I have is a Walkman actually. So what am I saying? Okay, Darren. Anything else you had to say about Gran Turismo?
No. I mean, yeah, we kind of covered pretty much a lot of what I thought what stood out about it. I mean, I think one big thing to like, Adam, you kind of talked about it, like, you know, a lot of games at the time, you know, was like, hey, here's 3 cars in the arcade and the home console one has 6 cars, you know, like a Ridge Racer type of thing, you know, like this having like well over 100 cars, you know, like that was insane. Like the amount of variety that it had, you know, for fans, you know, to play and dig into, like there was just a lot of content. And then, you talked about like the car washing aspect of it. Like there was a secondary layer of texture that like helped make the cars look like they were shiny and reflective and everything, which was like the system doesn't, you know, PlayStation 1 was not a ray tracing enabled, you know, hardware dynamo or anything like that at all. Like that was like just this weird, like technical, like workaround they found to make the car look like it was actually shiny and reflective. And it was cool how they had that wear down over time and be less reflective. You know, it was less the way that it like blended with the underlying like texture layer, and that when you went to go to the car wash, it just made that, you know, maximum, like, you know, that the way the opacity or whatever it was that it did that effect. Like it's a silly thing, but it's like clearly like people understanding like developmental details and like, you know, what the impact like certain little like technical tricks would have to allow them to recreate something, you know, in reality. And I think it's really cool. I think it's just, you know, just speaks to like how intelligent they were of like developers and how much of a handle they had on the hardware and everything. And, you know, how much they were obsessed with, you know, actually recreating what, you know, car fans would want to see, you know, in a video game. So, yeah, Gran Turismo, great game. It gets a 5 fun factor, 5 vibes score from me if I'm going to use your Flashback 32 scale here. But
that's what I would say too. But I think better than most games we've talked about on the podcast, I would even say. I like that little bit you mentioned about the car wash. It's like the car wash is like a little thing too that simulation mode does a good job of like making you feel like these are my cars. You've got your garage. Like I was winning cars, and like I'd sometimes win, you know, a replica of one, so I'd sell it for the money. But I always wanted to keep one. You know, I'm like, oh, I've got my cars and stuff. I don't know if that's how you're supposed to play, but I was like, I want to hold on to my cars, and like, you know, I put a bunch of work into this one. Like, I want to get a better one, but like, I don't know. I kind of like have a weird attachment to the Honda Civic now that I started with, because that was my car. So I feel like even the car wash, like that aspect of it, where it's like, oh, let's make it look nice. Like, I don't know. It goes a long way in this game.
Mm-hmm.
And that the amount of content, I will also double down on that. Like we've played a lot of games where it's like they have 3 courses or 4 courses, but then like you know, you run them in reverse, and like that's kind of how they get you to 6 or 8 courses, or maybe there's an unlockable one and you've got like 4 to 8 cars or something like that. And this, like, even like I said, even in just the arcade mode where they kind of give you access to like a lot of cool cars, they don't really hold back on that aspect. So it really is it is really like shocking compared to what we've played before. So Adam, anything else you wanted to say about Gran Turismo?
Not particularly. I mean, it is kind of it's a game that's like almost hard to talk about because of how much it informed everything, at least related to racing games. I mean, if you're talking about like inflection points in the genre, this is absolutely one of the biggest. There were so many games inspired by Gran Turismo in the years after Gran Turismo. There was Sega GT, or a couple Sega GTs. There was obviously later on Forza Motorsport. There was Driving Emotion Type S. I mean, good games, bad games, like, but like so many games that tried to do Gran Turismo as well as Gran Turismo. And, you know, some were better in certain respects, like the first Forza, you know, obviously years after this, different hardware, different generation, but like very good with like the customization of the cars that like Gran Turismo wasn't so good at in the early days. But, you know, they were missing like the polish, or they were missing like sort of the vibes, you know, like there's a certain recipe to this series that has like endured that you still feel when you play like GT7 even today. And I think that's why like it, I think, speaks to so many people. And the fact that if you were there early on, you know, it's a big part of like your understanding of automotive culture and like your awareness of things. And yeah, it's pretty cool. It like I was just playing a little bit of the game earlier today in preparation for this, and I forgot like how emotional the intro makes me. Like I know that's almost silly, but like you have that like Manic Street Preachers song with the Chemical Brothers remix of it. It's so good. It's tied to the visuals so well. All the logos show up on the screen, and just the logo shatters. Like, oh, it's just like maybe my favorite intro of all time. And a really great song too. So yeah, there are a lot of those feelings in Gran Turismo for me going back to it. And yeah, can't say enough good things about it.
Give me a road. Give me a car. Give me an opponent. And I will race him. I will show him who has more heart in the corners, who has a heavier foot in the straights, and who has a greater thirst for champagne. The race is on.
PlayStation.
Oh, hi. I didn't see you there. I'm Nick McConnell, and you caught me reading the instruction booklet for Street Fighter II in preparation for my weekly stream Instruction Derby, where I take a look at the creative, fun, and sometimes bizarre lost art of video game manuals. Did you know that, according to the manual for Street Fighter II on the Super Nintendo, Ryu was born in 1964, making him 62 years young, canonically? Happy birthday, Ryu. You're looking great. Did you also know that, per the manual for Laser Invasion on the Nintendo, the UN enters a conclave in order to select a new commando? Or did you know that the dancing enemies in Super Castlevania are named Paula Abgul and Fred Askare? These important facts and many more are discovered every Wednesday at noon Pacific on Instruction Derby over at internet website twitch.tv/Nick McConnell. Part of the Soundstone Network.
Thanks to both of you for coming and helping us along with this journey, giving us some tips to get better at the game as well. It was a lot of fun. Darren, as always, thank you for joining us, talking PlayStation. The reason I had Andrew make me some cool PS1 music is I'm hoping that, you know, I want to make a more conscious effort to talk about more of the heavy hitters of the PS1 on the show. So I hope within, you know, not too long, I hope to have you back and we can, you know, put the N64 in its place some more.
Well, yeah, they Polyphony, you know, they had a heavy hitter right after this one. I mean, they had Gran Turismo 2. Oh, wait, no. After this, they had Omega Boost.
Omega Boost.
A mech action 3D shooter in space from the creators of Macross and Panzer Dragoon's Way, and all fusing together with Polyphony to make the only non-racing game that the company has made to this day.
Yeah.
I watched
Omega Boost is cool, man.
I watched some footage of that and I was like, I can't believe this is a PS1 game. It looks so
wild. It was
wild.
a rad game. I love that game.
Yeah. Okay, well maybe we'll talk about that. But I had some other. I was going down maybe the best-selling games. I was like, because we've talked we've talked about some interesting games that I've loved. But I'm like, I want to talk about some of the games that really made people want to sell their N64s and get a PS1. like a lot of our guests we've talked to. Not a lot, but
like decent, I did.
Like you, yeah. Anything you got coming up that you would like to promote or anything?
I mean, just go to pixelsandpolygons.net. I'm sure there's something there that maybe you don't own or haven't read or seen or anything. Pixels and Polygons Quarterly, and putting the next issue together for that. We mentioned Snowboard Kids at the top, and it's funny because you contributed a Snowboard Kids article for the last issue of Pixels and Polygons Quarterly. So that was fun. But yeah, that's what I'm working on. Next issue of that, plugging away at my secret skateboarding project in the background, and listening to the Patreon exclusive Flashback 8 series, which you should all go subscribe to Flashback's Patreon so that you can also listen to that today for as little as $1. That inspired me to definitively, I used to, as probably around the same age Gran Turismo was out, I had a notebook paper and a notebook, and I would like rank my favorite games, and I would write down games that I played, and I had like a running list of like my favorite games of all time and stuff, and I tried to keep up with it. Like, I've not done anything like that in a long time, but I kind of want to like try and like force rank and go through like lists of games and like make my definitive like top 100 games of all time or something like that. And maybe do like a project out of that, a podcast or like a little book zine thing or something. I don't know. We'll figure it out. Maybe a little like commentary journal, slice of life thing, and not maybe talk about the games as much, but why I love them at the time or something. I don't know. But all inspired by the magic of your new Patreon exclusive Flashback 8 series that you can go listen to today for $1 by signing up for Flashback's Patreon.
I love this idea. I'm really excited about it, and thanks for plugging our thing in your plug. I really appreciate that. Adam, thanks for coming back. I'm gonna definitely be talking
so much.
Talk to you soon about coming on for an N64 racing game that will probably now feel horrible to play after doing this, but I look forward to having you back.
No, but it'll be good. The N64, I mean, like, yes, maybe at this time the N64 didn't have a lot of stuff to compete with Gran Turismo, but like once you got that Beetle Adventure Racing cooking, I mean, that's just one of the best racing games ever. So
that's what we're building towards. I think like 10 people have like mentioned this on the podcast. Like, and I just keep thinking like, I'd never heard of this game. So I'm like, can't wait to like get to it and see the payoff.
So good. Yeah.
What do you want to tell people about? Where can they find you? What do you got going on?
Well, first, subscribe to Flashback Patreon. I have to say it too. I mean, you get great content and you get great stickers. For me, what should I? Yeah, so I do a podcast too called Time Extender Evo, and you can find this on Blue Sky. We're extend time with the .me, and we don't put out episodes as frequently as better podcasts, but we do sometimes. And we've got some stuff cooking for sure. For myself, I'm on. I write for a website called The Drive, and there's been a lot of interesting like racing game related stuff that's happened lately. A really good game that one that has kind of taken me by surprise recently came out called Screamer. I just reviewed that, and I've been having a blast with it. So if you're interested in that, go check that out. And also Forza Horizon, it's right around the corner. So if you care about Forza Horizon, there's stuff on that too on The Drive. So it's about it for me.
Awesome. Yeah. Highly recommend. The last episode I listened to where you on Time Extend Revo, where you created like your dream Frankenstein games, like that was a very fun concept. Great show. It
was so much fun, and I like how there's 4 hosts, and like the games were all just embodiments of ourselves. Like they were entirely predictable, but yeah, it led to some cool ideas.
Yeah, if you want to hear a good racing game podcast, that's the one to do. So
Yeah.
McKenna, great job today.
Great job, Goop.
It was a lot of fun playing. We played some we raced against each other as well. We didn't mention that, but that was fun.
Yeah.
And it ran well. So
Yeah. It looked good too.
Looked good, yeah. So thanks for doing that. Thanks everyone for listening. You can find our stuff at flashback64.com. You can find information on Darren's show, Pixels and Polygons, at soundstone.network, where we've got all of our other great Soundstone shows. Thank you to our Triforce tier patron, Lee, the man. Thank you, Lee. Thanks everyone for listening, and we'll see you later. Bye.
Hello, we are Kirby Conversations, a podcast on Kirby along with adjacent subjects like Smash Brothers, HAL Laboratory, and other related Nintendo games.
In each episode, we take an in-depth look at a new Kirby topic, drawing on our decades of experience with the series. I'm Sean Douglas. I'm a writer and podcaster with a background in video game and theater journalism.
And I'm Gigi, the editor-in-chief of Kirby and a big Kirby fan from Brazil. I translate Kirby interviews from Japanese to English and research a bunch of obscure Kirby media.
And I'm Bridget, a longtime fan, commentator, fan artist, and Kirby collector.
Join us for a mix of commentary and original reporting, deep dives into Kirby history, interviews with industry professionals, and more, as together we explore all things Kirby and HAL Laboratory. We're a proud part of the Soundstone Podcast Network, and you can find Kirby Conversations on Apple, Spotify, or wherever you listen to podcasts.